From Zero to Azure. A journey that has taken over a decade, but now it is nearly here. The upcoming release for Trails to Azure completes the Crossbell duology's circuitous journey to the west and sets the series up to start again moving forward with Trails into Reverie this summer. Before we get to that though, I want to dive into Trails to Azure and what to expect from the second game in the Crossbell arc of Trails. I will attempt to cover a lot of different topics of interest in the video, but if any slip through the cracks, let me know and I can do my best to answer your questions in the comments. First though, a quick background on Trails to Azure. Trails to Azure is the sequel to Trails from Zero and the second game set in the city-state of Crossbell, surrounded by the two superpowers of the continent, Erebonia and Calvard. The game was originally released in Japan in 2011 for the PSP, a Chinese port for PC came out in 2013, and an enhanced version called Ao no Kiseki Evolution came to the PS Vita in 2014. After some time, Nihon Falcom decided to port the game over to the PS4 called Ao no Kiseki Kai in 2020 and enlisted Clouded Leopard to make a Switch port for 2021. Through this all, no version of the game had come to the West through official means, but a fan translation came out in 2018 and then was taken up by a group called the Geofront. If you want to know more about why it took so long to bring Crossbell to the West, I have a video on Trails localizations that explains that in detail. The Geofront then polished the initial translation and worked with programmers to deliver a better version of the initial PC port done by the Chinese company Joyoland. Their work was then picked up by NIS America along with their work on Trails from Zero, which released officially last year. Now, Trails to Azure is coming to PC, Switch, and PS4 in the West by NIS America, and the PC and Switch versions ported by PH3 Games. The game releases on March 14th, 2023 in North America, March 17th in Europe, and March 24th in Australia. Moving forward, I'm going to assume that people have played Trails from Zero, so while I won't go into details, that game may be referenced, so if you haven't played the game, be wary of incidental spoilers. Trails to Azure picks up a couple months after the events of Trails from Zero. If you want to know what they were up to in the meantime, check out the drama CD Road to the Future linked in the description. To make up for team members who haven't made it back to the SSS yet, Lloyd and Ellie are joined by two new team members, former leader of the Testaments, Wasi Hemisphere, and CGF transfer Noel Seeker. The city of Crossbell is seeing greater activity and interest, though, in the lead up to the trade conference organized by new mayor Dieter Kreuss that will bring together leaders of many different nations. As this is happening, a new group emerges in the shadows to confront the machinations of Heiyue. All this while the mysteries of Kia, Crossbell, and many others linger from the after effects of the cult incident. Can the SSS overcome an even steeper barrier than before? Play to find out. Trails to Azure is where the story of Crossbell takes a leap forward both in the internal conflict in the city and how it relates to the wider geopolitical struggles happening between and within Erebonia and Calvard. You should expect some riveting political discussions along with bold moves by various parties to realize their goals within Crossbell. Groups that stood on the sidelines before will emerge with renewed purpose, and our team of misfits, having gained experience and adoration across the state, will be forced to reckon with foes both familiar and new. All of this leads into a fantastic finale, if I do say so myself, that closes Crossbell's story for now while propelling the wider narrative onwards with consequences felt years down the line in the series. For those coming to Trails to Azure from the Liberal arc of Trails in the Sky, you'll recognize some faces appearing for the first time in the Crossbell arc. You also get to see certain major players hinted at in Trails in the Sky gain greater focus and start making bigger moves. It's not as tied into narratives from Sky as Zero was, with one particular character in mind there, but there's still plenty to recognize and add to the puzzle of what is going on in Zemuria, and it sets up well for the next arc after Crossbell, which is Trails of Cold Steel. Now, for those coming from the Erebonian arc of Trails of Cold Steel, whose first two games happen concurrently with the events of Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, you get to see the other side. The Phantasmal Blaze plan had two sides to it after all, and some of the major events in Azure especially bleed over into Trails of Cold Steel. Now you get to see what it was like in the thick of the action in Crossbell instead of watching from afar. What were certain characters doing when they were gone from Erebonia? How about seeing characters that would move to Erebonia after Azure in their first appearance? The chances are there to see it all. Added on top of that are the cameos brought in with the Kai re-release for Cold Steel characters. These aren't extensive, but it's a fun Easter egg they added in for players to enjoy. There are also some mechanics that are introduced in Azure that come over to Cold Steel eventually. On the gameplay side of things, you should expect more of the same Trails content. You are set various quests, some of which are required, some of which are optional, and some of which are hidden for you to complete. Do so and you gain points and money. These tasks range from defeating monsters and investigating incidents to locating lost items or doing a delivery person's job for them. You may get to go to some locations at Crossbell you didn't get to go to previously, but for the most part, it's the same city and countryside you know and love from Trails from Zero. If you enjoyed the mini-games of Trails as well, you have the casino and fishing to engage with, along with one new mini-game, Pom Pom Party, where you're matching palms and taking on some tough opponents at the same time. Combat is also largely the same, although with a couple extra party members, both of whom you use during Trails from Zero, albeit briefly. Two changes though have been brought, which should seem familiar to those who have already played Trails of Cold Steel. Number one is a Master Quartz, which you can put into the center of the new Enigma 2s and level up with continued use to give better stats and some initial boosts in battle. The second is Burst, which comes about in special story moments and is a meter you can fill up. Once it is full, you can engage Burst mode, and your party can act without enemy involvement until the meter is depleted. Craft points restore each turn, arts are instantaneously cast. It's extremely helpful in Azure, especially for a series of incredibly tough battles that you're expected to lose but get more detective points from if you win. As expected, the visuals and presentation style of Trails to Azure changes very little from Trails from Zero. Even the music is largely the same since you're visiting the same locations for the most part. However, this did allow the composers to go hard on the new songs for Azure, and whoo boy, the songs towards the finale absolutely slap and are considered among the upper echelon of music from Nihon Falcom, even in their celebrated discography. That's the gist for the main game itself, a familiar site with a broader scope and impact and a couple cool new locations, songs, and mechanics. If you enjoy Trails, there is no reason I can think of that you wouldn't adore Azure. It is not just a fun game, but a unique combination between a satisfying conclusion and a climactic showdown that boosts the narrative onwards for the SSS, Crossbell, and the entire continent. What about this specific version of Trails to Azure though? What has Falcom, NISA, and PH3 Games brought to the table with this release? When Falcom made the Kai port mainly off of the initial PSP release, with only a couple things coming over from the Vita Evolution version, specifically additional voice acting, this release will only have Japanese VA and updated character portraits. Kai did not bring over the extra quests or remix soundtrack from Evolution. Kai's biggest additions, though, were several cameos for characters from Trails of Cold Steel who were mentioned to be in Crossbell during the events of Trails to Azure. A couple did appear in Zero and appear in Azure as well, but there are some bigger cameos in Azure that I know a lot of players are looking forward to. When it comes to the different console versions of the game, I must mention that as with Trails from Zero, the PS4 version of the game is the base version ported by Falcom with no changes other than an English script added in by NISA or PH3 Games. The main improvement between the PSP and PS4 comes with supported 60 frames per second and a high-speed mode. The Switch and PC versions are where a lot of improvements and additions have been made for the Western release, and those two have feature parity, so whatever PC has, Switch should have as well. For context, I played the PC version. These features include, but are not limited to, support for aspect ratios from ultra-wide to 4:3, adjustable UI, message log, draw distance increase, higher quality character and object sprites, frame rate up to 144 frames per second, anti-aliasing, dynamic shadows, auto-resume save, etc. There are a boatload of additions and improvements which are always welcome to see. How does the game run then? 95% of the time it runs like a charm with no issues whatsoever. Just a fantastic port. Unfortunately, I had an awful time in Azure, specifically with vehicles. At the beginning of the game, the SSS is given an orbital car to drive around the city and countryside. I really enjoyed using that when I played the PSP version, as it was extremely convenient. Imagine my surprise when I drove it for the first time, got to the location and looked around and the car was gone. Not only that, when I tried to send it back to the garage to make it reappear, the game froze and crashed. Annoying, but not game breaking, as the buses still worked fine, as do, the 2 feet. There is one quest though that I could not complete due to my inability to use the car. In the final chapter though, you get a different vehicle for use, and that vehicle was also bugged. It occasionally worked and I found workarounds to complete the game, but I've never had this level of problems with a Trails game before. I sent along footage of the bugs, my own guesses of what caused it and what allowed me to work around it to NISA, so hopefully things are fixed by launch. I will update a pinned comment to keep those curious up to date on if this issue is fixed or not. Again, I was able to finish the game, but I can't deny it was annoying to go through, and I hope no one else has the same issues. As for the English script, I was overall impressed with the localization, as the dialogue flowed well and worked with the characters as I know them. I don't know exactly how it compares to the Geofront version, as I played the original translation for Azure, so I can't compare and contrast, but I imagine it's similar to how they treated Zero's script. As with Zero, the chest messages are back and as punny and unique as ever, including a return of Trails in the Chest from Leona Renee to look forward to. I noticed 1 or 2 text errors in my playthrough, but I also neglected to speak to every NPC as I went around focusing instead on finishing the game, so I imagine there could be ones that I missed along the way. The one thing I was looking out for was a name that was messed up in Cold Steel 4 that I was thankful to see had been correctly done in Azure. Also, side note, Tio only gets better and sassier every time she appears in it. Love it! I think this is a pretty thorough coverage on what to expect from Trails to Azure while remaining spoiler-free. If you have any questions about stuff that I didn't cover in the video, you are more than welcome to ask them in the comments. Trails to Azure is a really good game, I can assure you. I thought that my opinion on the game may improve with a better English script and improvements to the port, and I was correct. I think Azure is a standout game in the series, and I'm glad that more people are going to get the chance to experience that soon. Thank you to NIS America for providing me with a code to cover the game. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and comment to help it find more people, and subscribe if you have not already to keep up with the channel and all things Trails. Have a great day and happy gaming.